The cracks in the Golden Rider. If there's one thing cycling fans believed was impossible, it was Tadej Pogačar breaking. You could puncture his tyre, starve him for 3 days, or make him race Jonas Vingegaard up a volcano, and he'd still find a way to smile, wave to fans, and drop everyone with a 1,000-watt grin. But this year, during what should have been his crowning Tour de France, the unthinkable happened behind closed doors. The Slovenian rider almost quit. Yes, quit, as in get off the bike, wave goodbye to Paris, and call an Uber to Nice. The cycling world learned later, way after, in what has become the most emotionally charged post-Tour interview of his career, that Pogačar had been fighting an injury so painful that he, quote, started to have doubts about continuing. This is the same guy who once finished a mountain stage in the rain with a dislocated wrist and then joked about it. And now, suddenly, the unstoppable smile machine was talking about quitting. Cue the collective gasp of every cycling journalist, from Ljubljana to Liège. It all started on stage 10, a brutal heat-soaked stage through the Pyrenees that felt less like a race and more like a medieval experiment. UAE team Emirates had a plan, as they always do: control the front, strangle the peloton with watts, and let Tadej dance away on the final climb. Simple, but this time he didn't dance. He grimaced, he fidgeted, he did that weird shoulder twitch that he only does when something's off. By the time they hit the final 10 kilometers, even the commentators noticed, quote, Pogačar doesn't look himself, said one, which in cycling speak means, oh dear God, he might be human. Later, he'd reveal that his left knee had started to, quote, lock up. He left something and he felt it tear, quote, it was like my leg wasn't responding, he told reporters afterwards. Quote, I couldn't even push on the pedals the way I wanted. Imagine that. Tadej Pogačar, the man who makes climbing look like ballet, suddenly pedaling like a guy hauling groceries up a hill on a city bike. Back at the UAE team bus, the atmosphere was glacial. Everyone avoided eye contact. His physiotherapist was whispering something about inflammation, and the team doctor brought out the dreaded ice pack. And Pogačar, that grinning, fearless, mountain-devouring prodigy, looked at the floor and muttered, I don't know if I can keep doing this. A sentence that sent shivers through his team. The Prince of Cycling was actually cracking. The Tour from hell. By week 2, the Tour de France had turned into a full-on endurance nightmare. Temperatures soared past 35 degrees Celsius. Riders were collapsing after stages like dehydrated zombies. Jonas Vingegaard, the man who once broke Pogačar's heart on the Col de Granon, was quietly clawing back seconds. And Tadej, he was faking it. Not the results, but the smiles and composure. You could see it in every finish line interview. The trademark cheeky comments were replaced with robotic, yeah, it was a hard day, replies. His usual bouncy body language looked rigid, like his soul had been trapped in a leg press. Even his coach, Jokseen Matsin, admitted something was wrong. Quote, he was suffering in a way that we had not seen before. We told him to stop if he needed to. That sentence, if he needed to, might not sound like much to you guys, but in the ruthless vocabulary of pro cycling, it's code for, we think he's about to collapse, but we're pretending that he's fine. Stage 14 nearly broke him. The stage profile looked like a cardiogram, with climbs stacked upon climbs. Each one was sharper than the last. On the Col du Noyer, cameras caught him shaking his head, talking to himself. Later, he'd admit, quote, I was talking to my leg. I said, come on, not today. But the knee didn't listen. By the descent, he had lost contact with the front group. For the first time in 3 years, he looked mortal. His face was pale, his cadence dropped, and the radio crackled with panic. Tadej, relax, they said. Ride your tempo. Which again is cycling speak for, you're dying out there. He finished the stage still in yellow, but barely. When he dismounted, he immediately limped towards the bus, ignoring cameras. UAE staff formed a human wall to block reporters, and inside that bus, the conversation was reportedly brutal. One staffer said later that he heard Tadej say, quote, "If tomorrow's like today, I'm done." Imagine the chaos in that bus. Sponsors praying, mechanics whispering, directives trying to act calm while googling knee tendon recovery time. Meanwhile, Jonas Vingegaard, that polite Danish enigma, said after the stage, quote, "Tadej looked tired. It's not often you see that." Translation: he's bleeding. I can smell it. Pogačar slept that night with an ice wrap taped to his leg and 1,000 doubts spinning in his head. The tour from hell was devouring him from the inside out. The turning point. Every Tour de France has its crucible moment. The point where champions either disintegrate or transcend themselves. For Pogačar, that moment came on stage 17 up the fearsome Col de la Bonette. At 2,715 meters, it's one of the highest paved roads in Europe. The air is thin, the gradient is cruel, and for a man nursing a bad knee, it's basically a climb into madness. Before the stage, UAE's team meeting was grim. The doctors warned him. The tendon was inflamed and maybe partially torn. It was impossible to tell without scans on a machines worth $500,000. Continuing could risk months of recovery, but quitting would end the dream. Quote, "You can stop at any point," Matson told him. "Nobody will blame you." Pogačar just nodded, put on his glasses and said quietly, "Let's see how far I can go." Classic Tadej, the kind of calm defiance that drives both fans and rivals crazy. The stage began brutally. Team Visma attacked early, knowing that he was wounded. Wout van Aert was up the road, turning the screws. Vingegaard sat behind, poker-faced, while Tadej's teammates tried to shelter him like knights around a wounded king. Halfway up the Bonnet, the cameras caught him again, jaw clenched, eyes blank, body fighting itself. Every pedal stroke looked like a gamble between pain and pride. Fans along the roadside screamed his name, but he barely noticed. He later said, quote, "I wasn't thinking about the race. I was thinking about how stupid I would feel if I quit now." By the summit, he was still there. Broken, yes, slower, yes, but still there. And something in him flipped. Instead of giving up, he decided to make it his war cry. On the descent, he attacked. A desperate, almost crazy move that left even commentators stunned. "He's attacking," one shouted. "He's attacking with one good leg." And somehow it worked. He clawed back 30 seconds. He didn't win the stage, but he won something more important. The narrative. Suddenly, everyone stopped talking about his weakness and started talking about his will. By the time he crossed the finish line, covered in sweat and disbelief, the cycling world had fallen back in love with him. Even rivals nodded in respect. Vingegaard later said, quote, "I think that day everyone saw what kind of champion he is." Behind the scenes, his knee was swollen like a balloon. He could barely walk, but when asked if he had considered stopping, he just smiled, the old smile, and said, "Nah, I was just warming up." It was the most Pogačar answer imaginable. The price of greatness. The final week was pure survival for him. Every day was a negotiation between pain and pride. His sawyers worked around the clock, wrapping his knee in ice, stretching the muscles, massaging the scar tissue. He barely slept. He ate because he had to, not because he was hungry. But he made it. Somehow, against every doctor's warning and every journalist's prediction, he rolled into Nice still in yellow. It wasn't the dominant, grinning, meme-worthy victory fans were used to. It was something darker, harder, and infinitely more human. At the final press conference, he didn't do his usual jokes. He looked tired, thin, but oddly peaceful. When asked about the injury, he said, quote, "There was a point I thought I was finished. I started to have doubts about continuing. But then, I thought about everyone watching, and I couldn't stop." Thank you for watching today's video. Please subscribe if this is your first time here to stay up to date with all of my uploads, and leave a like on the video for good luck. Also, consider commenting down below your opinions on what you think about this topic. I don't think most people actually know that this happened.